Welcome back to the podcast. This episode features Simon from Pink Flamingo Home Loan, a business that provides mortgage service to LGBT plus community in Melbourne, Victoria, and anywhere in Australia. Simon started working in the sector in the mid-90s and since set up Pink Flamingo in 2021. He's been helping people from the initial point of conversation to getting the keys. During our chat, Simon explained the difference between a mortgage broker and a bank consultant. He shared insight on navigating interest rate change, and we also looked at the implications of some of the changes of regulation last year. This conversation covers general advice and concepts about the home loan space. Everyone's case is different, so when you're seeking advice especially for you, please reach out to pros like Simon and weigh out what's the best for you. I think it's time we hear from Simon, isn't it? Today we have Simon from Pink Flamingo. How are you today, Simon?
I'm very well, thank you, Arthur. Thank you for the opportunity.
Let's start with who you are and what your business is doing. Can you give us a little bit of introduction, please?
Absolutely. So I started in finance way back in 1994 as a teller in the bank. And over the many years, I've had many roles in banking. And around 5 years ago, I thought to myself, I can do home loans myself. I could do all this myself and look after my own clients. So that's what I've done. I formed Pink Flamingo in 2021. And it's been great ever since. And it's been such a journey that I really love my business.
Just a disclaimer, it is not the John Waters movie. It is a home loan business, and Divine's not there.
Absolutely, very different. Absolutely. Yeah, we won't go into that, but yeah, that movie is very different, very out there compared to what I'm presenting.
Yes, I think we've got to be a little bit clear about that because
Yeah, people can
anyway.
Google that if they like.
Oh gosh, it's very I think we're living in a day and age that there are many people in amongst different generations that are having need some help to get their home loans sorted to get into the market. Can you tell us a little bit more about kind of like an overview of how the process work?
Absolutely. So as we are at the moment, around 70% of loans in Australia are done through a mortgage broker. And I do feel that people are after help face to face. They really like the technology, but they want to have that human contact. So that's exactly what I present to people. And I help them from their very first inquiry right through to getting the keys to their home if they're buying a home. If it's a refinance, well, I'm making sure that it's completed how it should be, making sure the loans are set up correctly. But I'm here to help through the whole journey and work with other professionals that people will have, like their solicitor or conveyancer. I want to take that mystery out of the whole process. I really am here to help.
And can you tell us a little bit about the difference between a mortgage broker and a mortgage consultant at a bank?
Yes, very good question. So in essence, for me, I have 37 lenders to choose from. So that's quite a number. And generally, based on what people tell me, I'll give them about 5 to choose from. But it's an organic type of conversation towards that. If they go to a bank, they only got that bank's policies. Unfortunately, that's what it is. So if those bank policies don't quite fit, it's not going to work as such. So whereas a mortgage broker, we've got access to so many different lenders that there could be a different policy at a different bank that we can make certain scenario work for them. So that's one aspect. We can also look at what sort of offers are out there. If we can get a better offer, sometimes we can actually get a little bit cheaper than what's advertised. That's also a possibility for our clients. So that's the main difference, is that bank employees don't always have a certificate for a diploma in mortgage broking, whereas it's very much a requirement for myself to actually have my association membership. I have to have that education as well.
One of the things that I want to raise is that with someone like yourself, that you have the understanding of nuance outside of the bank system, and also being able to understand that, oh, sorry, examine the different products available across the banking space. There is a big difference when it comes to the scope of where people might get the better loans. So, yeah,
Absolutely. It all comes down to listening to the client. What is the client telling you? There's so many ways that you could do certain scenarios, but the the client's telling you how to run what they're after, and I feel that that's key in this. There are questions to be asked, but it can't be like a cookie cutter type of scenario, tick a box. It's really got to be, what is the client telling me, and what is their personal situation? There are polite ways of asking questions and not necessarily going straight for the jugular and saying, "Oh, how much are mum and dad putting in?" Well,
ooh.
yeah,
And that actually is a really perfect segue that because many people in the LGBT plus community might not have the support or maybe they have a very different way of life that and the other thing is like we also like I know everyone talk about the bank of mom and dad, but they still need to live. That's the thing. I mean, they have their own money, you have your own money, like something like that. Anyway, but can you tell me a little bit more about the nuance when it comes to working with the LGBT plus community?
it comes down to just being aware of their situation. And there's self-employed LGBTQI plus people, and some people work for employers, and it's all about understanding what they're doing, things like their pronouns,
Yeah.
and being respectful that way. My systems cater for that as well. If
Oh,
in the times we live, is that
yep.
there should very much be respect around that. And sometimes that's missing in our community when they go to certain specialists. There's
Yeah.
no understanding around that. Some people
It's
don't even understand what all the letters of LGBTQI plus stand for. So
no.
um,
Well, look,
I
I mean, usually I just call them that they are the A because they're the assholes.
yeah, some people have no idea what those letters stand for. So I'd like to think that I bring to the table that understanding, and that I understand where they're coming from, and it's
And that
not a
comes from and that comes from conversation and approaching with nuance and that understanding complexity in a way to complement how you can process.
yeah. If you're ever in doubt, it's one of those things. Arcs, like, it
Hmm?
doesn't hurt. It's better to ask than to assume and get things very wrong.
Oh
And
gosh, yeah.
it doesn't form trust at all. And trust is all around understand your client. And I'd like to think that I make quite large efforts to understand that.
Well, from what I noticed, I think you're doing great on that front, and I think it's very important because not only our like in our community, it may not be available in terms of generational wealth, but also if you have another hurdle of not having a professional understanding you and your nuance on that, then you will be less likely to go into that space. So, for example, getting a home loan from a bank that presumes everything of you instead of, And now we're going to take a quick break. I'm going to have a bunch of quite specific questions about mortgages and home loans and to share with our audience. Is it okay? How are you doing? Are you feeling confident?
Yes.
Okay. All right. We'll take a little break. Welcome back. We have Simon from Pink Flamingo Home Loans with us back. And yeah, so Simon, I have a bunch of questions for you about the home loan and mortgage space. And can you help us out a little bit?
Absolutely, more than happy to help out.
Oh gosh, yes. So now one of the things that I do find dreading to look at is sometimes is looking at the news from the economy. My question is, what are the key factors that Australians should think about when choosing a mortgage broker?
Yeah, great question. So um, it's really centers around when you go for a loan, how flexible and how convenient is the services you're selecting? Um, are you after more of a broad range of uh, lenders to choose from or not? Do you really want to seek out possibly the best um, lending interest rates that that particular person has on their panel, or are you just after whatever the bank has as their best? It really comes down to those sort of aspects when you're considering using a mortgage broker. And you should always check out, are there costs involved?
Mm.
Because for me, there is no costs as far as my services. The bank charges what they charge, but I don't charge my clients, whereas some other providers may do. So it's you just got to ask those questions. Having more choice sometimes can be a good thing.
When it comes to mortgage, one of the scariest thing is the interest rate. Because I mean, it's like I think just looking at the news about the RBA governor announcement, it's as scary as watching, I don't know, Nightmare on Elm Street or something like that. But in the last couple of years, how did those changes in interest rate impact like the lending space in the country?
There was quite an impact to my clients in that I really stayed close to them. So in my world, I would normally help them after they've got a loan. I would review their situations every year, just once a year. Whereas an example of last year, I was reviewing it generally about 4 times and seeking interest rate reductions in that time. So that's sort of the difference, is that it really stepped up just how much support I was giving to my clients because they were so worried. And
Mm.
you really need to stay close to them around that and provide a level of understanding of where things are and what they can do. You don't always have to just see what happens. If there is some mechanisms in your lending that can be done that would lessen the burden on you, your broker should be talking to you about that. It's not always about interest rate, and
Mm.
it, it always helps to understand what your interest rate is. A lot of times people come to me and say, I have no idea what my current loan is, what their interest rate is. That's step one. Let's have a look at that. What can we do? How does it fit into your overall situation? So absolutely, the news could be a bit daunting sometimes, but there's always ways to navigate that scenario. You should always talk to a professional about it if you're worried.
Can you explain that a bit about the difference between what is fixed and what is variable? And it with what's happening right now in the economy, which one do you think might be better? Give us some tips.
Well, as a mortgage broker, we can present to our clients what both are, and it's up to them, the client, what they would like to choose, but they should be very well informed about what the two offer you. So let's start with fixed. So a fixed interest rate, the reason why people mainly take that out is for the period of time it's a fixed loan, their repayment will always be that amount while it's fixed. And that is one of the main drivers of why a person would take out a fixed interest rate. So that can feed back to your question before around how do people navigate worrying times. That's one of them. On the flip side, you've got variables. So as Australians, you can look it up in the stats that we like to take a bet, and generally a variable loan can sometimes be uh, more popular, have other features as well, like offset account as such.
Well, actually, I'm like, not to overshare that mine is actually a variable from the beginning. Because for me, I know that my behavior wise, that if there change, I can adjust over time, but I'm not the kind of person who can change my behavior like a lot in one go. So I actually find fixed rate might be a bit of a gamble for me. So that's a strange little thing that I know about of myself. So it's like, ooh, that can be a weird thing, isn't it?
Yes, you got to really talk it through with your professional around your situation. Does it fit how you like to do your banking?
Learn something
There's
new today.
always options. Just because you start off on one type doesn't mean that you end on that. You can
Mm.
always change things around as time goes on.
And it can always be beneficial when it comes to like talking to someone like yourself to explore what other options are available, because even when you're having a 30 years mortgage, it doesn't mean that you have to stay with the same bank for the rest of the 30 years, isn't it?
That's right.
What are the most significant like regulatory changes in the mortgage industry recently, and how do you think they affect the borrowers?
Yeah, so for me, I was still a bank manager when this one came in, and
Mm.
um, the event of the Banking Royal Commission. So that brought about some changes in the industry,
Mm.
and that changed my thought train as well to become a broker. So in recent times, we've had the legislation that's called best interest duty. So we will look at what is in your best interest. We are compelled by law to look at, is this loan right for you?
Mm.
Is it the best I have on my panel of lenders? So I don't have every lender in Australia, but I have quite a number. Am I presenting to my client what is the best I have? So that has certainly come into recent times. And best interest duty isn't always about things like interest rate. It could be the situation. Am I placing my client into a loan that is suitable for them? They
Mm.
might be coming up to retirement. How have I navigated that? How, are they aware of how they're going to pay for this in their retirement? Those sort of things. It really comes into how we look at people's lending. They've always been around in the many years I've looked at lending, but now it's more concrete in law that this is how it's going to occur. Recently, just there are a little bit of a relaxation, I guess, in the refinancing space where the banks will put what's called servicing buffers on top of what your current interest rate is to assess you at a certain amount. So should interest rates climb, they'll make sure that you can afford it within a certain band. So within refinancing, they've brought that requirement down a bit so that you can have more freedom, so to speak, to move between lenders if you've got some good history behind you in making repayments.
Can you share any tips about managing repayments during, their, you know, tricky times these days?
Absolutely. So um, it always helps to have a professional look at what is your current repayments. It might have been some time since you got that loan. So maybe a refinance is one of the options you could take.
Hmm.
That may change your repayments, which would push out your term back out to 30 years as an example, if that was right for you, but would lower your repayment to see you through a tougher time that you may be having. Um, that's just one aspect. So there are loans out there that can go beyond 30 years, but you need to be well aware of the risks around that. You need to be very well informed of those options. The last one probably would be things like interest only, but again, you really need to be really aware of what you're getting yourself into, what your impacts are. But above all, there's always options available to you, and a professional should be able to lay them all out on the table, so to speak, and say, this is what your current situation is. These are your options. Do you want to do any of them? So, yeah, if you feel that you're stuck, it always helps to go and seek, well, what information is out there, what a broker or a bank person can show you, demonstrate to you how those repayments could change for you to help you in those situations.
Oh, it's very important. I think what I would say is if you notice something a little bit out of whack, just like if you find a strange little thing pop up on your back or something like that, just get it checked out. Like
Absolutely.
if you find a mole on your back that look a little bit funky or something like that, just go to a GP. Kind of similar in a way, isn't it? I mean, if you feel like you're a little bit out of sync with how you usually manage your repayment, talk to your mortgage broker or talk to your bank and just get an understanding, because there might be some personalized advice. When you talk to a professional, you will have a personalized understanding and advice based on your actual situation. So,
Right.
how do you see the future of like mortgage lending evolve in Australia over the next couple of years? What do you think about it? I gotta get you to predict a little something. Sorry about that.
No, great question. So I think the trends we're seeing now will go forward in that um, mortgage brokers are on the ground. We are your face-to-face professionals. We're here to help. A lot of my clients, if they have done everything over Zoom, eventually they're going to meet me in person. And I think that won't change. I think more and more people will want that professional service that's face to face, but with the interface of technology. So, what we're doing now, like Zoom, particularly in COVID times, became the only way to meet. And I feel that that is with us to remain. And the use of technology surely will only get better and better, one would hope, um, to make sure that we're not doing so much paperwork even now. I would like to think that there'll be some refinement around that. But ultimately, we are still human beings. We still want that personal service. And I can't see people not wanting that in the future. So I feel that that's our way forward, is that technology will lead the way, but you will always want that human interaction.
Well, I can't agree more, because when I was going through that process, it was actually during COVID lockdown. So, but it was within that 5 kilometer space. I don't know if you remember that period of time. And I was quite fortunate that my broker at the time was within 5 kilometers,
Ah,
but we were still before we can meet. So we
yes.
ended up meeting at a park bench like a drug deal. But even though at extreme time, like the COVID lockdown that we had a few years ago, we would still have that human interaction. And that's why even these days, even when you are helping with a client in Melbourne or something like that, then well, look, I mean, I met you in person before, so you would come to visit them. And I think that's a really good thing.
Oh, absolutely. Victoria is one of my favorite hotspots. I visit it regularly. I like to visit my clients face to face, and I like it to be in the process.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's not permitting, like a deal has to be done
Yeah.
and it has to be digital. Sometimes their reviews I might do face to face, and I'll go and visit for go and see 5 or 10 clients in one visit. So
There
it's
you
not
go.
outside the group. I am in Victoria. I'm invested in the process.
Well, I mean, well, one of these times I'm gonna get you to go for a coffee and cake. Well, we're gonna go on a little break, and after that, I'm gonna throw Simon into another bunch of strange little questions that has nothing to do with his work. And welcome back to the last segment of this interview. Simon, how are you doing?
Yeah, good. Yes.
Are
Yes,
you ready to a bunch of questions that I don't know?
I'm ready.
Okay, okay. All right. Well, yeah, so it's a quick fire round of a bunch of random questions that you will need to answer me very quickly. And but of course, at any point you can always say skip and then we'll go to the next one. Shall we?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. First one, what is the one item that you couldn't live without?
TV,
Oh, what are you like outside of your work?
relaxed,
What's your favorite theme park?
skip.
Which talent or skill would you like to wake up with tomorrow?
Oh, I'll get back to you on that one. Skip that one too.
Ooh, okay. Well, in the multiverse, there's an other version of Simon. Name a job that this Simon would do.
Um, I'll probably be a bank manager. I love like an old
Oh,
style one.
oh, nice, interesting. What inspires you on a Tuesday?
Coffee.
Uh, good one, good one. Actually, that's a very good. What is the biggest business lesson that you learned from your career so far?
Um, Make sure you've got all the facts,
Mm,
because the biggest mistake I made was thinking that there was only one path. When I
yeah.
set up business, that there's a little intricacies about my licensing, and I
Oh.
was aware of a second path. So make sure that you've got all of the info.
I have to agree on that one because I had I used to be on a quite a different career path, which I did really want to like focus on the creative industry and work full time in it. But then sometimes that life takes you to different places and you got to follow the sign and go for it. Now, what's one piece of advice that you receive and you would like to pass on to the others in the community?
Okay. There's more than one way to set up your business. So go and see your accountant. You want to be with like-minded people in like for like businesses. You want to, they're not your competitors, but they complement you.
Absolutely. If you're a superhero, what would your superpower be?
Ooh, kindness,
Wait, what?
kindness. To
Oh,
spread kindness.
well, that's nice.
I
Oh,
think
oh,
when
that is quite deep, actually. That's good for you. Good for you, because I was like, because originally I was thinking about telekinesis, but then I realized that I just want to burn calorie without moving. Just saying. Anyway, what is one biggest misconception about a mortgage broker that you would like to break?
yes, that we charge fees. A lot
Oh,
of us do. A lot of us don't. We
yeah.
don't cost you any more to go through us generally. So, um, yeah, that's a common misunderstanding.
Because many would like would get the income from the bank as they complete the
That's
deal. Yeah,
that's
so
right. That tends to be one of the misconceptions, that we all charge fees. We certainly don't. It's up to the individual broker what their business structure is.
sometimes I can see that there are so many misinformation out there that people might have misunderstood. that where the cost or charging came from. And that's why check with the person, get the
That's
first-hand information. How do you keep your momentum going?
um, seeing the joy that you bring to people when, particularly when they're getting the first home
Mm,
or their next home, or the relief they're getting if they're getting a lower repayment through moving their loan.
mm.
All of that, all the thanks that I get for just doing what I do. Like that time that I'll give an interest rate reduction because I've got the ability to do it on an existing loan.
There you go.
That brings joy. The thanks you get, people are generally very happy that you've got them across the line, so to speak. So
I
that's why.
think I think it's not only is a momentum and also a sense of purpose that you're doing, and thank you for doing that, because sometimes if you are being a part of a big machine that you don't get to do as much as that space. And yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And yeah, it's sometimes lost a bit in a service type industry because it's not something always tangible. Like,
Yeah.
can't see a loan. It's you owe it, but you might see it on your app, but it's not something like a really physical thing, so to speak. And sometimes that's lost in service industries, that the joy that you bring people through helping them. And that's why I do what I do.
It's not the easiest path, but I'm really glad that there are people like yourself that in the space to help an understanding of complexity and nuance in the LGBT plus space. And Simon, thank you so much for taking part in this interview, and best wish for your future, and also for you listening out there, if you or someone you know that might want to get to know a little bit about what they can do with their potentials in the mortgage, or potential of getting a home, why not give Simon a call or give them a bit of contact? Before I let you go, Simon, can I get you to repeat how people can find you?
Absolutely. So I'm on social media, just about every platform like Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. You can find my webpage, or you can Google me, Pink Flamingo Home Loans.
And it's the Pink Flamingo Home Loans, not the John Morton movie, even though I really enjoy those movies. I know. Uh,
Very
and on that note, thank you so much. And for you listening at home, thank you for listening and have a good day. We're living in a changing world. And for me, I don't want to live fabulously poor or ridiculously rich, but the ability to be and stay independent at any point in my life. It was too easy to yell YOLO in 2011 and spend because you want to impress. But the world came up with many catchphrases since, and they won't be the last ones. If we prepare ourselves as much as possible in advance, when the opportunity comes, either a chance to get a home or entrepreneurship, good things tend to favor those who are prepared. Here's my top 3 from this episode, which may help you plan ahead as well. Working with professionals like Simon is a good way to get an overview of the market because they are not bound to one institution. They can give you client-centric approach advice and find home loans process that meet your need. It's not like banks won't, but their consultants will be choosing from a smaller pools of options and have a more strict KPI requirements from the institution that they represent. So they may not be able to meet your needs on the same level as someone like a broker. Simon shared some insight on managing the impact of changes like interest rate. Things like being informed about different options and compare that to who you are can be very helpful to make an educated decision for a big commitment like this. Maybe you are someone that takes a long time to change your lifestyle. Then something like offset home loans and variable rates that can help you to gradually change and adjust your lifestyle to the changing cost. I'm particularly impressed by Simon's inclusive practice because just like industries like healthcare, education, and many more, taking that step instead of boxing them into criteria is such a good way to improve outcomes and build better trust. I may be a broken record at the moment, but being personalized, understanding what's important to the LGBT plus community, and making sure that we feel respected and understood are super important for smaller operations to differentiate themselves from big competitors. It's an understatement to say at least that this decade is not an easy one or optimistic one. And a lot of people around the world are indeed feeling the squeeze. I want this episode not only to be about home loans, but it's about making informed decisions and finding knowledgeable professionals that make an effort to understand you. As individuals, we need to take steps to know where we are in life and creating opportunities for ourselves to think ahead. Personally, if I think about the 70-year-old Arthur, I would want him to live in a comfortable space where he can enjoy independence. Now that's a lot to think about, but it would be worth it. Once again, the content from this episode is general information and advice of opinions. If you'd like to explore your options, please reach out to professionals like Simon. I put his contact on the show notes. Thanks for listening. Get Chatty About Your Local Businesses podcast is produced by me, Arthur, the Chatty Curator. Thanks for your company. I hope you enjoyed this episode, learn something new, or pick up something helpful to realize your aspirations. The podcast guests are making time and appeared in kind, so please consider supporting the podcast by supporting them. Head over to their socials and website on the show note, like or share on social media, or tag a friend about it. Or send them the episode's dedicated page on chattycurator.com, a spot where you can listen to all of the episodes without a Spotify or YouTube Music account. Until the next episode, let's keep on getting chatty about your local businesses.